start with a quick review for this book, The Oxygen Advantage. I'm going to give this book 4 stars. So it was interesting to read. I definitely changed my view on breathing. I've read other books regarding to breathing, but I felt like this book has additional layer of information, different type of information, different exercises, different breathing exercises, and more scientific, I would say. A little more scientific than the other books. So I would recommend. It's an interesting view. You don't have to fully believe into it, but it's definitely something to try. I tried some of the techniques, and it's definitely being somewhat helpful. So I would definitely recommend trying it. That's why I gave this book 4 stars. There is one, I almost give it a 3 because there is some parts of the book which you kind of go in on long tangents, not directly related into things. But overall, I felt like I have received a good value out of this book. So that's why it's 4. There's also quite a lot of notes. Let's see it. Excess oxygen can cause free radicals and damage tissue. That's what happens when we overbreathe. It can cause free radicals and damage tissues. People who live in higher altitudes where oxygen is less dense tend to live longer. So there is less oxygen basically up in higher altitudes, and they tend to live longer, those people. Air is not less important than food and water. There should also be in good quality. We really care about the food and water we drink, but about the air, we don't really pay attention as much to it. Or we do care about air quality, but not the way we breathe it. One way to know if we overbreathe is if our abdomen and chest move more drastically. So the more drastically it moves, that means we basically overbreathe. When we overbreathe, we exhale too much carbon dioxide. That's one of the problems when we overbreathe. Too much carbon dioxide get exhaled. It's not about the oxygen getting in, it's more about carbon dioxide getting out. Oxygenation of the blood is usually quite high, and breathing more would not make it higher. It's like pouring more water to a full cup. So we sometimes think that if we're going to breathe more, we're going to have more oxygen. But our body is fully, or mostly, I think it's like 94-95% oxygenized, and it's really hard to get it higher than that. It's the metaphor he uses is pouring water on a full cup. Overbreathing prevents CO2 from leaving the body, which in turn prevent oxygenation. So that's one of the problems with overbreathing, which goes in some contradiction to this one here. When we overbreathe, we exhale too much carbon dioxide, and here there is overbreathing prevents CO2 from leaving the body. I thought it's too much leaving the body. It could be maybe both of them could happen, but definitely something with the carbon dioxide going on there. Low carbon dioxide levels, which caused by high oxygen levels, is not good for our body. So when there is low levels of carbon dioxide, is also not good. We always think that carbon dioxide is bad, but our body needs some of that. Carbon dioxide helps us regulate pH levels in the blood. That's one of the reasons why we want to have a normal levels of carbon dioxide. Low pH levels prevent oxygen saturation. That's another reason why. We can reach the same saturation if the pH of the blood is low. Normal Bolt score is around 20 seconds. 40 minutes is great. Bolt score, I'm going to explain here what is a Bolt score. Bolt score is how long after exhalation breathing is needed. So usually we exhale, hold a breath, and how long we can hold a breath after exhalation is our Bolt score. And the recommended one is around 20 to 40. It should be seconds, not minutes. Seconds. Nasal breathing is associated with abdominal breathing, while mouth breathing is associated with chest movement. So nasal is more directly, usually is when we breathe through our nose, usually our abdomen is more involved. The same, and not the same applied with our mouth breathing, is more chest. And he recommends abdominal breathing in this one here. Abdominal breathing is associated with relaxation. That's one of the reasons why we want to breathe more into our abdomen. Our food now are more acidic than ever before. One of the reasons why we would want to breathe more or less. I think we want to breathe more because we try to balance the pH levels. Nasal breathing clean and purifies the air and also warming it. That's what nasal breathing does. It's more important, it's easier for our body to cleanse it and also warming it, so we don't dissipate heat as much. Mouth breathing can cause bad breath. So the problem with mouth breathing, there's more bacteria, I think, if I remember correctly. Good nasal breathing is letting it all out, holding and continuing with an emphasis on maintaining calm breathing. That's what happens after the bolt. So nasal breathing, we're letting it all out, holding it for as much as we can, and then continuing with short breaths until we can maintain calm breathing. The goal is so others won't notice us breathing. Even better if when we ourselves don't notice it. So that's the goal after those breathing exercises, breathing very shallowly, like very, very easy breathing. So no one would hear us, and even if we don't hear ourselves is even better. Bigger breaths don't add more oxygen. So if we breathe more, it doesn't add more oxygen. That's what we've been through before, but another emphasis. In sports, if we can't nasal breathing, we should slow down. So if we cannot maintain nasal breathing, that means slowing down a little bit. Drawing blood and injecting it before raises and increases oxygen levels due to the red blood cells concentration. So you take blood before exercise, before the race, and you re-inject it right before the race. Increase red blood cells, and that is supposedly help with performance. Live high, train low is proving to be the best technique for endurance. Live high when you have less oxygen, you get used to breathing less oxygen, and you train low when you can perform better. So your body get used to less oxygen and there is more, it performs better. Breath holding increases white blood cell count and is associated with better oxygen delivery to the muscle. That's one of the reasons why breath holding is important. Breath exercises is better done after exhalation. It's better. You said you could do it with a full breath, but it's better done after exhalation. There is more benefits done with holding the breath with after exhalation rather than with a full inhalation. Drinking too much water can cause issues and even lead to death. So too much water is also not good for you. Mouth breathing dries out our body more since more moisture comes out. So more moisture comes out when we mouth breathing versus to nasal breathing. So it's important to nasal breathe, not a reason to nasal breathe. 3 sets of breath holding is recommended. When we do the bowl thing and we check how many sets, 3 sets. It's important to take short breaths following the exercises. So we do the bolt, we do short breaths rather than long and deep ones, doing short ones, and then maintaining shallow breathing. While walking, we can do the exercise holding it from from 10 to 40 paces. So it's not like if we're walking, we can also do the bolt thing. We just count the number of steps. We hold the breath after exhalation, and we count the paces. While swimming, we can increase the number of strokes between breaths. So that's what we can do also swimming. We can maintain more strokes, and that's going to be increasing the holding breath intervals. You should create a mild hunger for air. That's what supposedly has to be done, is we don't have to be full of air. We should maintain mild hunger for air. So we need it, but not deeply need it, because then we start to heavily breathe heavily. So mild hunger for air is good. Relaxing the stomach is highly beneficial. Just releasing the muscles, just letting it go for a little bit, is really good for the stomach. In sports, it's important to be fully inside our bodies while focusing on it rather than thoughts. Sometimes when we engage in sports, we get into thought processes. It's more important to be inside our body in breathing and checking that all the muscles are working correctly. According to the author, what ifs are a waste of time due to the number of variables. And I ask, is it? In some cases, analyzing might create breakthroughs. So he has a little section about meditation, which was not directly related. He went into long parts about meditation. And what he says is one part of it is that what ifs, where sometimes we're engaging in what if thoughts. And he said that it's a waste of time because there is a lot of variables. And I mostly sympathize with this view. However, I think in some cases, analyzing might create breakthroughs. We understand things we would not understand. When nervous, hold your breath. That's one good to do about when we're nervous. Hold your breath and not breathe more. Bolt score of less than 10 seconds at rest is indication of restlessness. So when our bolt score is less than 10 seconds, especially at rest, is a sign of restlessness, we should relax. CO2 is acidic, and breathing more is often done in order to lower it. So CO2 itself is acidic. Breathing more lowers the acidity, and that's why we sometimes try to breathe more. According to the author, breathing right could aid diet. He says that it could help diet. It's one thing. This is one part. One of our problem with this book is, like many other books, it's a one-size-fits-all solutions that this thing will just change your life, everything. Could be that it helps, but when there is too many claims, it's a little questionable. Workout causes oxygenation, but normal amount can be counteracted with antioxidants. Too much workout would be damaging. So if we overwork, this is not good because it creates free radicals and oxygenation. So that's why we want to maintain normal levels of exercise. People with asthma breathe 2 to 3 times more than others. That's a staggering amount. Those who have asthma feel suffocated, so they breathe more, but that causes more breathing in the loop, because when more air comes in, pathways gets narrower. So people who have asthma, they do breathe 2 to 3 times more. What happens is that they feel suffocated. That's why they breathe more. But what happens is when they breathe more, it creates a loop, because when more air comes in, the pathway gets narrower and you feel suffocated, so you breathe more and more, and then they just do mass breathe eventually. The tongue should be resting at the top of the jaw, similar to the way we express na. So that's where normally when we breathe. That's where the tongue should be, up there, resting. Try to synchronize breathing to abdominal movements. So when we inhale, we raise the stomach. When we exhale, we lower it. Try not to sigh. If one slip, hold the breath for a few seconds to compensate. When we sigh means that we took too much air and we let it out. But the thing is, we want to compensate for that. It's not good to sigh. And when we sigh, hold the breath for a few seconds and to compensate for the inhalation. So that's it for the notes. Again, there are some interesting parts. I really recommend reading the book, especially if you're interested in this, in breathing and oxygen. Definitely some new things to try. That's why I give this book 4 out of 5. Thank you.